Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. It is a wonderful morning here. It's episode number 8 of Daily Updates with Sridhar Chityala. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar ji. Good morning to you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, sir, and I hope the weather is holding up in New York also. Sir, we have a very busy set of things to cover today. The first thing being stimulus, and before I hand you over your thoughts on stimulus, I don't know if viewers got a chance to watch the Wolf Blitzer Nancy Pelosi argument that took place yesterday, and Nancy could not, Pelosi could not convince Wolf Blitzer as to why the Democrats are still holding out on the 1.8 trillion package offer, and she could not also explain why she would not want to meet the president to iron out the differences, because the differences are only about $400 billion apart. But that was the last we had. We have some more updates. Maybe Sridharji can update us with that, and then there's much more to cover. So here you go. Sridharji, take it away.
Thank you so much, sir. Where we stand with the stimulus is this 2.2 versus 1.8 trillion dollars. For all practical purposes, it seems now out of the window. They're not just going to be able to accomplish it by end of October or November 3, which is the presidential election. And where we will leave is we started with this 25 billion, 122 billion, 25 billion to airlines which need immediate assistance, 122 billion, which is the PPP. People said, that's very targeted and very limited. There are schools which need assistance. There's hospitals which need assistance. There's some help that is needed for the local governments that also needs to be augmented and included in the package. And the discussions recommenced. So that's how we went from 1.6 to 1.8 trillion dollars when there was a gap of close to $600 billion in the original proposal. Even that doesn't seem to have clicked. So where we stand today is, as per Mitch McConnell's discussions last night, Tuesday, that they are targeting something like a $500 billion package, which would cover the PPP program, which is very critical. Then the taxpayers as well as the individual benefits program, both targeted at taxpayers as well as the unemployment, extending the unemployment insurance, and then of course the child subsidy and support to the local governments and some certain specific sector, and also to the healthcare, because coronavirus means now with no vaccine breakthrough, there's going to be more help needed to the hospitals in terms of providing services. So that seems to be the package that they are heading to. Republicans will pass it in the Senate, irrespective of what the Democrats think. And he made it very clear, Republicans don't believe in a policy of doing something rather than nothing. So it has to be targeted, measured, and impactful. And I must say, the original 2.1 trillion has delivered the benefits that it intended to achieve.
Thank you for that, sir. And viewers, might I point out that a former presidential nominee or candidate for Democratic Party, Andrew Yang, as well as Congressman Ro Khanna, split ranks with Pelosi, urging her to take this deal. So there is a certain amount of disarray, dissension in the Democratic ranks. So we don't know if that's going to start reflecting itself in the elections to come. So, but we'll wait and see. Sir, the next topic that we're going to look at is the economy. In terms of the economy overall, now the IMF is saying a few things. What is your take on that? Because I'd like this to be quick because I want to spend a lot of time on Amazon's amazing performance.
Very simple. IMF's forecast is that the world economy will be contracting. If I have to quote, it will be less severe, but more deeper in its impact. Now, what they're simply saying is that there is going to be a contraction, and they have scaled down from minus 4.9% to 4.3% negative growth, and it will not be greater than minus 4.9%. So in other words, it's not going to be minus 8%, but there is a recession, and it is going to be less severe recession, or less severe contraction, no recession. Let me take my words. It's less severe contraction relative to what was originally forecast. Now, when you take that IMF projection into context, then look at what the economies of United States and the rest of the developed nations have projected. That again re-emphasizes that economies, by virtue of the stimulus program, have been able to claw their way back in Q3. We expect Q4 to be something similar, but certainly Q3, they've clawed their way back based on the initial estimates. That's again reflected when we go and transition into the next topics, the earnings. The earnings numbers that we are seeing, that we have seen yesterday, and the numbers that just breaking story from Goldman. JP Morgan is stellar, Johnson & Johnson is great, Citibank is good, less than forecast, but good. Bank of America missed the earnings, and Goldman Sachs is crushing the markets. Amazon, great numbers, is a reflection that the markets have absorbed the stimulus and is reflected in the earnings. Just to wrap up on that point from economy to markets as we transition, NASDAQ is up 30% year, and S&P is up 3.6% for the year. That does not reflect to you that there was a huge pandemic in this country in Q2, and the pandemic continues, and with no vaccine in sight, and potential full recovery in 2022. So earnings, the contraction, and the reflection of the markets is only because of the stimulus package that has come in and the ability of the people to absorb it.
Yes, indeed, sir. And one quick update on COVID. A couple of companies have either pulled back their vaccine or are going slow. Could you please throw some light on that, please?
The Johnson & Johnson was one of the companies which was mentioned by the president with their serum. It looks like there's maybe 1 or up to 5 cases of some abnormal behavior or abnormal symptoms noticed. So that has been pulled back. Eli Lilly was the second one. They also have observed some discrepancies. So both have suspended their pilot test trials in the market. That did put some element of damper in terms of the responses of the markets yesterday and even today. But these are setbacks in clinical trials, which you would expect to be normalized as the time kind of goes on. It just simply means that the breakthrough that was expected in 2020 may not happen. It probably is around 2021.
Thank you, sir. And now on to our main topic, Amazon. Amazon has become the harbinger of the future of how companies will be running. This company was treated, people used to say its crash is imminent, but you notice that this stock has come from, I think, $280 a share about 24 months ago to now 3,000 plus. I mean, there is something amazing that Jeff Bezos is doing. And Sridharji, can you kind of walk us through this amazing success story of Amazon? Because I'm hoping that this will kind of become a blueprint for those of us who are trying to start our own new startups.
Great. No, I think Amazon, no, you are talking about 380. I remember Amazon when it was initially listed at $34. So it is now around $3,480.
100 plus, 100 times, yeah.
And growing. It's quite, I think, meteoric. And what is not factored into the computations is Amazon is not yet into full-fledged marketing and advertising revenues. There's still kind of marketing and advertising on the brands marketing on their platform in terms of the product, but they've not still gone into the advertising revenue. Now, primarily the revenue is coming from their cloud services, which they offer as an extension of the technology to the merchants, then of course the whole retail sales. Now, to your question, the numbers are quite stunning, right? Once again, 2020 as at today, their earnings, their sales is up 40% relative to 2019 as they commence their Prime Day sales, right? Now, what does that tell you? That just basically tells you that the Amazon has mastered what its customer needs and what the customer demands are better than anybody else. If you talk to the Whole Foods CEO after the acquisition and the integration of Whole Foods into the Amazon kind of the architecture, what the Whole Foods CEO will tell you is there are three essential things that they have been able to benefit. Obviously, superior use of technology in terms of managing their retail business. Number two, their ability to see the consumer buying patterns and preferences much better on demand and cyclical. They're able to manage that. And the third is the price elasticity in terms of the customer preferences and choices. And fourth is still making their way is the whole construct around the usage and the stockpiling, right? So you do not want to minimize as much as stockpiling for goods that are not used or that are not in demand. So the superior deployment of technology has helped Amazon to conquer every product, either they buy or source from outside, or they do an acquisition and integrate it into their framework. So superior customer excellence and backed by preferences and choices, price, cyclical, non-cyclical demands, and their ability to toggle the business in the event of a crisis like pandemic. So they can actually stock up in their warehouses and distribute the products fairly quickly. That is reflected in the numbers.
Thank you, sir. And viewers, yesterday Apple released its Series 12 products, 4 products, $699, $799, $999, and $1099. The interesting thing about this release was not that Apple was releasing a product, but it was that it was releasing a 5G technology-based product. You know, there's a subtle change in the way the messaging took place yesterday. Sridharji, can you please unravel this for us? Because 5G is now become one of the fulcrums of the quad. I mean, somebody say, how is quad related to technology? A little bit of that, and also why Apple has brought 5G technology to the front and center in their new product release.
I think it was a fascinating insight to listen to Steve Cook. When you look at the redesign that has happened to Apple after the Apple X product offering, which was much expected, the whole communication was around marketing. It's about experience rather than a fundamental change either in the design or adding some kind of exceptional features. If you kind of take a look at what the 2 or 3 things that Apple has done in the Apple 12 range is one, as you rightly pointed out, the expansion of the product set, number one. Number two, the whole theory was about future. We are loading 5G into Apple, so which means your phone is ready even before the 5G is in the market. By the way, wherever you go where you are selective testing of 5G going on, your phone can still work leveraging the 5G infrastructure that's prevalent in the country. So Apple is always about experience and future. So I think that's the message they were delivering on the 5G piece. The second is that I'm told now they've included, because of the superior chip, I'm not a games guy, but they've included this most popular legend game into the Apple 5. So obviously, it has got a young audience. I mean, I'm sure games is played by everybody. So, but they've embedded this. The third is, I think they have basically said that it's about packaging. They are kind of trying to be environmentally conscious and removing, including the headsets, is now no longer in the packaging. They're saying they're environmentally kind of cognizant. So it's much more about socially responsible as well as about future and vision. That seems to be the underpinning theme of the communication of what Apple 12 is all about.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very, very crisp summary of what transpired yesterday. By the way, viewers, I must tell you that from Apple 11 onwards, the number of cameras has gone up on Apple. Not only that, now you can use this 11 or 12 to have a professional two-person conversation. You don't need anymore those expensive video cameras that people have to lug around if you want to make conversations. You can do it with this. I'm hoping that more and more people, because it's actually going to give you 4K quality, even from 11 onwards, and it's one of those things that I had my eyes on because I wanted to have one of these phones on my next trip to India. Carrying a phone like this is a lot simpler than lugging a professional video camera. So with that, we would like to bring this episode of Daily Episodes with Sridhar.
Can I just take
Yeah, please.
1 minute of
Please.
the time?
Please.
See, there are going back to Amazon, or going back to Goldman, or going back to JP Morgan, or going back to one of these the other companies, or Disney, which we talked about. Essentially, any business ecosystem is driven by three fundamental principles. One is around capital allocation. Where do you put capital? Once you put the capital into specific segments of business driven by certain IRR and strategic kind of rules, the second thing that one looks at is the capital deployed creating inherent risks, and how do you kind of manage and contain risks? This varies from business to business. If you're an Apple, it's different. If you're a Google Alphabet, you are different. If you're an Amazon, it's different. If you're a bank, it's a different. If you're a Disney, it's a different. But you can see that the question of capital allocated, managing the risk in terms of any derailers that come in. And then the third is, how do you generate economic returns through operational excellence? So there's a common theme that is emerging around capital, around the risk, around the efficiency. Now, the US government is moving to some extent towards that model. As a kind of an American citizen, if I say this, then people would say, hey, you guys are kind of boasting too much about yourself. But that's the truth. When you have capital allocated, if it is directed to your program and the wastage is contained, that is, you don't kind of waste the dollars that is deployed, that's the risk management, you find that the economic outcomes that you target are accomplished, right? Amazon is an example, JPM is an example, Goldman is an example, Apple is an example. And I think the US government is to some extent demonstrating that it can absorb more debt in its balance sheet and still service it while achieving the economic outcomes for the people.
And now you know why the deep state in America is kicking and screaming because of Trump being at the helm of affairs. Thank you very much, sir. That was a wonderful summary and 101 for people who want to start out their own businesses. Once again, thank you very much. Do join us tomorrow, same time, same specialist, and we'll be back. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, Ji.